Hi, my name is Olufemi Williams. I'm your host pharmacist at mywebpharmacist.com. Today I'm going to be talking about the world of addiction. This might be a little bit long, but it is a very important topic. In my previous video, I talked about the menace of addiction and the long-term solution. But today I want to go into details about the world of addiction. So, there's a preamble, and this article, of course, I'll put the link below so that you can read it at your own pace. But first, I told the story about a young girl I saw waiting for a school bus. So she was still in high school, and she stood apart. She was smoking a cigarette. I was going to work in the morning, and in my mind, I thought, how did this girl get introduced to taking cigarettes? She's young. What is she thinking? And I started thinking, if she's starting this early, what is she going to graduate into? Is she going to go from smoking just cigarettes to taking marijuana, or also called Indian hemp? And she was a beautiful girl, and I was heavy in my heart, and I thought it is very important to let young people know very early the consequences, even as simple as cigarettes can be addictive, although people still would challenge that. But it's very important to get this information to our young ones. So you could read that. I talked about that, and then talked about how to get the information to them very early. However, let's go to the definition of addiction. Addiction has been defined by various professional bodies, and there's no final consensus about the real definition. But the American Psychiatric Association has defined addiction or substance dependence as a cluster of symptoms indicating that the individual continues to use of the substance despite significant substance-related problems. So the user knows that there's a problem, but the user continues to use this substance. By the time you get to that stage, it has become a substance dependence. Some others define addiction as a brain disorder characterized by compulsive engagement in rewarding stimuli despite adverse consequences. Now, this has been a definition that has been accepted by a lot of people because it is no longer just a bad habit. It is now a brain disorder. And the person compulsively engages in the rewarding stimuli, even though the person knows that the consequences are adverse. So that is the stage where the person just cannot help himself or herself. So I talked about more things about that. So when you talk about addiction, there is physical dependence and there's also psychological dependence. And these are two different things. The physical dependence is if the person tries to stop that substance, it really could cause adverse effects on the patient just for trying to stop it. Now, psychological dependence is, yeah, you really want this substance, but if it is taken away, it would not cause real physical harm. But these are very deep, more in-depth topics that have to be studied. And as I said in my previous video, these are not things that can be taken care of just by watching a video. You might need healthcare professional help where they actually work with you. And there are a lot of these clinics all over the US and probably in other countries too. So there are variables about the variables that affect whether the patient continues with substance abuse or even how fast the person gets addicted. And then there are a lot of details here, and I would really like you to go to the link at the end of the video, go to the link and read the detailed article. Now, there are agent variables. That means the drug, whichever substance or drug that you're taking, it depends on what kind it is. That depends on how serious or how quickly the addiction will be. Now, one of the variables for the agent or drug is availability. How available are these things? If it's easily available, more people are going to be addicted to it. If it's not easily available, fewer people will be addicted. Costs. The cheaper the agent, the more likelihood that more people will favor it. So that's why you see that some of these street drugs, more people are using them because they're extremely cheap. So when they can't get a more expensive one, they are offered these cheaper ones, which are also very addictive. Sometimes the potency or the purity affects how fast you can get addicted to a substance. So the higher the purity or potency of the drug, that's the strength of the substance, the faster the onset of addiction in most cases. Also, there's a route of administration. So if it's injected, it's usually more addictive and the onset is faster than if it's chewed. So there's some things are chewed, some are sprayed into the nostrils, some are put on the tongue, and some are just swallowed, and some are snuffed. So there are different routes of administration, but depending on which route, it would determine how fast a person gets addicted to it. So that's what I talked about, the speed of onset of effects. So I'd really like you to go into details. Here I talk about the history of cocaine and how there were just things that shepherds chewed. There were the coca leaves that shepherds chewed, and there wasn't much dependence then because it was the natural form. They just chewed the coca leaves, but later scientists in the 19th century were able to extract the actual active component, which was the cocaine hydrochloride, and that was when the serious addictions started. You can read more about this. I'll put the link below. It was introduced to the American public in the 1980s. That was the illegal introduction of the crack cocaine. And from then to now, till now, you can see how much it has devastated the society. Now, there are also the user variables. The person who uses it also determines how fast or how long you're going to be addicted to this substance. Sometimes it could be hereditary. It could be, for example, they say children of alcoholics have more tendency, but I'm not sure how true that is. But some races are more susceptible to alcoholic alcoholism than others. Sometimes it's a person's psychiatric state, person's mental state, what kind of pressures one is being exposed to, different people have different opportunities, and this is part of what changes the effect of these substances on one person compared to another. So you can read more details in the article. There are also the environmental variables. There's the social norms in your community. Are you expected to do these things? Does everybody expect you to drink at 21? Do your friends expect you to have a little bit of coke or cocaine? Do some people, expect you to smoke? Peer pressure? There's so many different variables. And then not all addictive substances are illegal. That is something very important to note. Not all addictive substances are illegal. Some are actually prescribed. They're supposed to be something you're supposed to use for a short term, but then you find out that some prescribers have kept on giving refills for some of these substances and have not given their patients proper counseling. Luckily, in the past year or so, the American government and the healthcare regulators have really cracked down on prescribers. They don't want all the irresponsible prescribing, because people just were prescribing to anybody. But now the lawmakers have cracked down on such prescribers, and hopefully there'll be some sanity very soon. But as I said, not all addictive substances are illegal, but it's good for you to know. That's why we want you to know, because they might prescribe a medication to you. Usually you're going to be told that it's a controlled prescription. Once you're told that, you should use this medication responsibly. Do not, continue using medications just because they were prescribed. If you have pain, learn to rest. If you have anxiety, learn to find out what the cause of the anxiety is. Don't be putting all your dependence on medications. You should also, try to find out the root cause of whatever the problem is so that you can work on it. Don't depend, fully on controlled medications. And in the back of your mind, you should know that you don't want to continue these medications indefinitely. So do whatever you can to also, help yourself to get better. If it's counseling, if it's family support, these are the things that are needed. And if you have a member of your family also in this condition, they really need your support. So our teenagers, they need us to talk to them, to be involved in what they do, even if it's from a distance. But please don't give up on our young ones. Listen to them. I'll also be making another video about how to solve the problem of addiction. That's probably going to be much shorter. But let me quickly point out some things in this article. Here I talked about recreational and medical marijuana, which is becoming legal in many states in the US. I have my serious reservations about legalizing recreational marijuana, but well, then I also want to point out some things which probably you might want to know. The withdrawal symptoms. When you are trying to stop some of these substances, there's some things that will happen. And these are the reasons why people find it very difficult to stop these substances. For example, if you are already dependent on alcohol and you try to stop, without any help, there'll be the craving, there'll be the irritability, tremor, nausea, sleep disturbance, tachycardia. That means your heart will be racing. There's hypertension, there's sweating, there's perceptual distortion. You don't even know what you're seeing. Sometimes people have seizures. That it could be that serious. Seizures 6 to 48 hours after the last drink. There are also visual hallucinations. And there's something called delirium tremens, which can happen 48 to 96 hours after the last drink. And it's characterized by severe agitation, confusion, fever, and profuse sweating. There's also tachycardia, which I said your heart will be racing. There's nausea, diarrhea, and dilated pupils. So you can understand why some people just cannot do without it. And as I said, prevention is better and cheaper than cure. There's also benzodiazepines, things like zolpidem, which are sleeping pills, and diazepam. These also have symptoms. If you try to stop it without any help or stop it suddenly, there could be anxiety, agitation, increased sensitivity to light and sound, the pins and needles sensation, muscle cramps, sudden muscle contractions, and sleep disturbance. You could also have dizziness. There's also, if you've been using a very high dose and you stop immediately, you could end up having seizures and delirium. Nicotine withdrawal, that's those who those who smoke. And when they become addicted and they try to stop, there's the irritability and impatience and hostility, anxiety. There's the dysphoric or depressed mood, difficulty concentrating, restlessness, decreased heart rate, increased appetite, and weight gain. So that is why some people find it very difficult to stop smoking. For those who have um, for those who are on opioids and want to stop, they experience the craving for the opioid, restlessness, irritability, increased sensitivity to pain, nausea, cramps, muscle aches, dysphoric moods, insomnia and anxiety, dilation of the pupil, sweating. They could have goosebumps or goose flesh, tachycardia, which I said is fast heart rate, vomiting, diarrhea, increased blood pressure, yawning, fever. So you understand why it's very difficult for these people to stop what they're doing. And there could also be changes in weight. Now, the very serious ones like cocaine, people with cocaine addiction and things that are similar to cocaine on the streets, they have a state of unease or general dissatisfaction with life. So if they are not able to have this medication, you just see them seriously withdrawn. There's depression, sleepiness, fatigue, cocaine craving, bradycardia, which is the opposite of tachycardia. It's a slow heart rate. Even though it seems that the list here is short, but it could be very debilitating. Those who are addicted to marijuana, which is also known as Indian hemp, they experience restlessness, irritability, mild agitation, insomnia, sleep disturbances, and nausea and cramping. So, in conclusion, you remember the story I said about a young girl um, that I saw smoking? Well, I was just hoping that probably someone could get to these young ones and they can become responsible members of the society before they go in the route of addiction. Um, so this article, I wrote it. This was written about a year ago, in 2019, May. It was to warn the public of the dangers of, excuse me, of the dangers of resorting to addictive and harmful substances, whether they are legal or illegal. So thanks for watching, and please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video. It was a little bit long, but you could click below and you can read the article at your own pace. The next video is going to be on um, something similar, but it's just my ideas of how to solve the problem of addiction in the long term. So thanks for listening. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share. Thank you.